test.
Jeff, do you want to do a quick intro on the
It
budget?
should be.
Hearing? On the budget hearing, or you're just going to, after the roll call?
It'll just go right to money.
Okay, got it. You guys ready?
Mm-hmm.
Rick, you ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Dean?
Dean, are you ready?
I'm ready.
Ladies, you ready? Julie, you ready? Ready on this side? Okay. I'm going to call the meeting to order. Please rise for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Secretary, call the roll.
Sonala.
Here.
Casper. Here. Shalata.
Here.
Malloy. Boyd. Here. Barry.
Here.
Nunza.
Here. Over to Jeff Charleston.
All right, this is the budget hearing for the district. As I like to say in my world, budgeting lasts year-round. So we are here at the September part of the meeting. Last month, I presented the preliminary budget, and then the budget went on display, and it was advertised in the paper that we were going to have this meeting. So today, I'm just going to give an overview of the district budget, talking about some of the things that have changed since last month. And for board members who are interested in more details, you can find a detailed report in board docs. So I'm going to start with the overview, and then I'll end with this same slide, and we'll talk about the details in the middle. So the district is starting with a fund balance of $38.6 million. We anticipate revenues of $43.4 million and expenses of $47.6 million, which is a deficit of $4.2 million. We also are planning on issuing some bonds during the year of $2 million. So that will leave us with an ending fund balance of 36.4 million. So the deficit of almost 2 million is offset by some things that we call one-time expenditures. So we have construction, finishing up the things that are going on here and at Furick. And then we did a property tax abatement of $1 million also this year. So if you take out those things and just look at our normal ongoing operations, we do have a deficit this year of 1.7 million. This will be something to keep an eye on in the future. We usually like that bottom line number to be 0 or positive. So to have a negative number is something we're going to have to address in future years. We've had a couple of unusual years with COVID and everything, so our healthy fund balance allows us to deal with the ups and downs from year to year. So here are the things that changed on the revenue side since the preliminary budget last month. No changes on local revenue. State revenue is down 150,000. It's basically because the transportation claim was done in the last month, and since we didn't do nearly as much transportation last year, our revenue from reimbursement from that will be down. Small amount of federal change, so the net result is the revenue is down from what I presented to you last month. Here's where our revenue comes from, and you can see the vast majority is local revenue, and then smaller amounts state and federal. The federal amount is usually about 5%, but we have some CARES Act money, and so the federal number is higher than it normally is this year. 43.4 million in total revenue. Here's how, so this column right here is what our current budget is, and then here's how it changed from last year. So you can see that the local revenue is down significantly from last year, and $1 million of that is from the property tax abatement that we have done. We've been talking about that. And then the rest of it is interest revenue is declining. As you know, interest rates are way down, and so the revenue from our investments is also going down. State revenues are down a little bit, and federal revenues are up a lot, and that's due to new grants, and the federal revenue will essentially be offset with new spending. So 43.4 million in revenue, that's down a little bit from what it was last year. On the expense side, there were a number of changes from what we talked about last month. Most of them are salary and benefits, and it's just as we finalized our staffing, no real surprises there. And then other things, small changes as grant final numbers came in. So the expense numbers are 149,000 higher than we talked about last month. So a lot of numbers here, I apologize, but this is where we spend all our money. It's categorized these different ways. You can see salaries and benefits are the biggest two. Those two account for almost 70% of our total budget. And then everything else is down below, so a total of 47.6 million in expenses for the upcoming year in the budget. So here's another way to look at it. Here's our current year budget, and here's how it changed from last year. You'll notice salaries are up 1.6 million, which sounds like a lot, but on 26 million, it's not a huge percentage. We do have some new positions, all of which are, or most of which are grant funded, and then the corresponding increase in benefits. You can see that the capital line is decreasing from last year as we start to wind down the construction projects. And then also bonds, we have some bond payments rolling off, so our bond expenses will be lower. So you throw all of that into the mix and our expenses will be up a little bit from last year at a total of 47.6 million. So this is where we started. Back to the summary. Fund balance, beginning fund balance 38.6 million, a deficit of almost 2 million, but offset by some bond proceeds. So we're projecting to end next year at 36.4 million in the bank, which is a healthy fund balance. It's about 84% of what our revenue number is, so that's healthy. We still need to be vigilant because we don't like deficits. but the district is in good financial shape. And then again, just looking at it on an operations basis, starting with the deficit amount and then taking out the construction and the property tax abatement, those are kind of one-time things. Our operating deficit for the year is 1.75 million. And that is it. That concludes my portion. And now I think we open it up to anybody that has a
Board
question or a
question, yeah.
comment.
You know, Jeff, from the revenue perspective, I realize the interest is coming off and then obviously the abatement, but I mean, shouldn't the levy have gone up for the most part? I mean, is there something else in there?
There is one more thing in there.
It's odd that it would be that much.
There's $300,000 or $400,000 of food service revenue that is normally in the local account, and food is, breakfast and lunch is free this year for all students. So that source of revenue, normally we collect payments from families to pay for lunch, so that part is out. It's offset by federal revenue. The federal government is reimbursing our food costs. So it's
Is that part of the $1 million increase in the federal?
Yes, yes. So, property tax revenue without the abatement would be up 700,000 or 800,000, but we're abating $1 million. And then interest revenue will be down about 300,000 or 400,000. And then food revenue is also down 300,000 or 400,000.
That only adds up to like 900,000. I'm sorry, I don't mean to put you on the spot. I'm just trying to understand it.
Yeah.
Is that, we're down about 1.3, is that right? That's what we're,
Yeah, 1.2, 1.3.
is there debt service coming off? Is that part of it?
That's not in local. I can get you the exact numbers. I don't have them in front of me.
So then it's the feds that are reimbursing us. So then I guess the last question is if the feds are reimbursing us several $100,000, you know, I guess we've kind of talked about like, I guess we've sort of talked about we got to do this for COVID, we got to do that for COVID, and we've always sort of talked about there's this sort of ill-defined, the feds are going to kind of reimburse us. Are we not getting as much money from the federal government as maybe we thought originally? If, like half that increase is going to be due to food service reimbursements?
Well, so
Or
the
some of it
food,
coming in future years?
food service is essentially break even or slightly below break even in a normal year.
Yeah.
So in this year, the money that we normally collect from families to pay for food is just coming from the federal government. So the local amount is down and the federal amount is up for food service.
Yeah, I understand that, but what I'm saying is I would expect that our federal revenue would be up.
Rick, the other half of ESSER 3 is going to come in fiscal year '23.
I guess that's what I'm asking. So, okay, so,
About half of
Yeah.
ESSER 3 will come in fiscal year '22, and half will come in fiscal year '23.
Right.
so we're expecting perhaps that we're gonna get some federal money after the fact when maybe we're not spending as much? We're gonna get reimbursed after the fact?
No, we've got expenses to match dollar for dollar in those federal grants. It's not free money, so you have to have qualifying expenses that are to the dollar equal to the amount that you'll receive. So it's a wash either way, but it will be reflected in the federal revenue in next year's budget and the expenses.
And so, and all the revenue gets paid in the fiscal year in which it's spent? That's what I guess what I'm asking.
Well, that's the rule of the grant, whether or not they.
Whether or not, so that's
Sometimes-
what we're
sometimes-
budgeting. That's what we're budgeting.
It's budgeted that way, yes. Sometimes we don't get the money until we've spent it and reported it, so sometimes there is a lag from when it actually comes in. But for budget purposes, we budgeted money in, money out in the same year.
Rick, in the year end, the revenues will be reported in the fiscal year when they actually arrived, not when necessarily the corresponding expenses occurred.
Yeah, well, this is always goes back to the audit when they give us the opinion, because Jeff keeps everything cash basis, and the audited financials presumably would show receivables and the like. So, yeah, okay, that's fine. I guess what I'm just getting at is, just want to make sure we're not you know, that we're not like double counting like expenditures for saying, oh, we're gonna do this with ESSER money, we're gonna do that with ESSER money, and then we end up doing it, but there's not enough ESSER money. You know what I mean? We just do it. That's not anything that's happening.
No, the revenues and expenses in the ESSER grant need to match.
Okay. All right.
And we track those separately with their own account numbers and everything, so it's segregated out.
If we happen to have estimated under for ESSER expenses, then before the ESSER money expires, then we could come up with new expenses that qualify to spend the difference.
Okay. Okay, that's fine.
Other comments from the board? Okay, ready for public comment? Okay, we're going to open the floor for public comment. This is public comment on the budget hearing only. If your public comment is in regards to some other board business or other school district business, we ask that you wait till the regular business meeting to do that. But I will open the floor. Again, we have a 3-minute time limit for each speaker. So if you'd like to come up, say your name, and then give your comment, you are welcome to, again, on the budget hearing. Okay, seeing none, I ask for a motion to adjourn the budget hearing.
I move to adjourn.
Second.
Any comment? Secretary, call the roll.
Dunlap.
Yes.
Casper.
Yes.
Shalata.
Yes.
Lloyd, yes. Barry.
Yes.
Nenza.
Yes, budget hearing is adjourned. Now I will call to order the regular board meeting as soon as my computer catches up to me. Okay, I'll now call to order the regular board meeting. Secretary, we do need a roll call.
Dunlap.
Here.
Casper.
Here.
Shalata.
Here.
Malloy. Lloyd. Here. Barry.
Here.
Nenza.
Here. 3.1, Superintendent's report.
Yes, thank you. First item on the list tonight is report cards. We told the board at the last meeting, actually I think it was August Committee of the Whole, that we were moving back from standards-based report cards at Central. So there'd be some consistency across that so that we could do a complete building-wide effort to examine it as a solution for all subject areas in the future. And I'm happy to report that that process has begun. Wendy and Dr. Wesley at Central have had preliminary conversations. They are assembling a standards-based report card committee at Central that will be in October, and they'll begin creating an action plan and timeline for implementing standards-based grading for all subjects school-wide at Central. An effort is underway at the elementary level as well. Teachers at the elementary schools are looking for more alignment, better formatting, and more clarity on their standards-based report cards. You'll notice, looking across the district, that sometimes a third grade report card at one building might look a bit different than a third grade report card at the other. That was by design, as local teams were going through essential skills and common formative assessments. Wendy's now undertaking the effort of aligning those district-wide so that students will have a similar academic experience and teachers will be reporting on like standards in each subject area at each grade level district-wide instead of building-wide, and they're going to begin that effort this year. The committee will meet in October to create their actionable steps, and I look forward to producing those actionable steps for the board soon after, as well as the action plan and timeline for Central. So Wendy asked for me to make that report for you, and she regrets that she can't be present tonight. Next item is I'd like to throw it to Kelly for a bit of a summary on how things are going with test to stay.
As you know, we offer test to stay for students that are considered close contact at school. Overall, it's gone as planned. It's been going well. The biggest challenge has been receiving the signed consents back from family in time to provide that test to stay. As you know, you have to send home a consent for them to, for us to administer that test. So we're just working to get those back when necessary. Last week, we had 12 students at 3 different schools that were tested and 2 staff members. We had 1 student that was unable to test, and that student was sent home for quarantine.
Thank you, Kelly. I'll pick up where she left off to talk a little bit about testing of unvaccinated staff. As you know, the governor ordered that all staff working in public schools be either vaccinated or show proof of a negative COVID test weekly. We began a testing schedule that tests roughly one building per day of the week. As of end of business Thursday of last week, we had tested 40 individuals at 4 schools in the Ad Center. Don't have stats on Friday's testing, which was the 5th campus, or this morning's testing. But in those 4 schools in the Ad Center, we tested 40 individuals, all tested negative, and we should be rolling in compliance by the new deadline of the governor's order, which is the 19th of September. So far that's going very well. So next on the agenda, I'd like to discuss with the board, whenever we have a COVID positive person at any school building, every household of that school building receives the notification letter. And this was very, very important at the beginning of COVID for transparency's sake and so that people could get a handle on just what the status of the disease is in each of their school buildings. We now have much more sophisticated communication of that, dashboard with those results. It's updated weekly. And inside the district, everybody in the staff and the board is receiving the weekly metrics in an email. So I just wanted to, I thought this would be a good time since, I don't want to say we're getting used to COVID, but we're living with it for quite a bit longer than we thought we were going to at the beginning. I just wanted to get to the bottom of, is it the board's desire that we continue to do that, send a letter to each home within each school building every time there's a positive? Some of our neighbors are sending them to just families of classmates that are in the same classroom as the positive person, or the grade level, or not at all and send a weekly link to families. I just want to get to the bottom as community members and as parents, what your preference is, what's the right amount of communication. I feel like when we have 2 or 3 positives in the same building in a row, and some of our campuses are quite large, it may feel like there's a lot of positivity in the school, when in fact it's 2 students out of however many hundred, which is actually quite good compared to all of our community metrics and certainly our statewide metrics. I want to get to the bottom of what the right amount of communication is for those things. Certainly we can carry on for the grade now, or we can do any other thing that the board desires.
Well, my feeling, I don't know if it's necessary to tell the whole school every time that there is as far as a letter goes. I mean, with transparency, we're pushing the dashboard. The dashboards are broken out by building, are they not?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, so, I mean, that information's available, and if their child's class had a positivity, I could see informing them of that.
Indeed, certainly after our contact tracing, when there's a positive,
Right.
anyone who's a close contact to the positive person is getting a personal phone
Yes.
from the school building.
Yeah.
I'm inclined to agree with Dean. I think a classroom, I mean, you want to let, the point of the communication is, right, is to let people know to be on the lookout for symptoms in their own children, right? I mean, the idea is to inform, and so I think that seems reasonable. I mean, you'd want to know that. I mean, we in the past, we've sent those home if there was a kid who had strep throat or had the flu or something in the classroom, chickenpox, yeah. Let people know that they should be on the lookout for that. And, I mean, I think if you send it every time there's one in the school, it's like too much information, you know what I mean? It's like it tends to maybe not communicate as clearly. But if there's someone in the class, it seems like that would be reasonable.
Yeah, my personal experience is kind of what led me to start the discussion about reevaluating it. When we used to get a letter from our home district where my children go to school, we would, our ears would perk up, oh, there's a positive. Well, now we've received how many dozens of letters, of course, of how many how many months. And now we're kind of desensitized to it, doesn't really
Yeah.
mean much to us anymore. Why are we still getting these? So,
Yep, I agree with Rick and Dean. I think classroom is enough, especially because we have the dashboard and you can look up information for your individual school or schools if you're interested.
I agree. I agree.
Kelly, you want to talk a little bit about our annual fire and police safety drills?
Sure. As the board knows, we did update our crisis plan during the 2019-2020 school year. We really just realigned it with some best practices. We went through all of the processes in place for our crisis plan and added some things, such as a reunification plan. So that was done in the 2019-2020 school year. Every year, our buildings go through a series of different checkpoints where they're looking for, they're examining their building and kind of assessing different areas and making sure that they're familiar with the processes and protocols. They meet with their response teams every year and kind of review what the plan is and what the protocols are. And then, of course, by the end of the first quarter, we have a certain amount of required drills at each building. Right now, those required drills are 3 times a year, one with the fire department for fire and evacuation drills, and then for lockdown drills, which include both a soft lockdown and a hard lockdown. Those are we are required to do at least one of those per year. An active threat drill is done just with staff only. That's when the police department comes in and speaks with staff about their run, hide, fight strategy. And then also, the schools are required to do a severe weather drill and an earthquake drill as well. And bus evacuation, I'm sorry, that's all first quarter. So they document those, they send them to us, and then we send a report to the regional office annually stating that we completed all of these drills. This year, I do want to point out, there's been some new additional language regarding the lockdown drills. They added some language that says that we are required to notify families prior to scheduling any lockdown drill. Now, this is just the lockdown drill, this isn't fire drills, but anytime that we're doing a lockdown drill with the police department, the buildings are required to notify the families, and which allows the families to exempt their children from participating in that if they so choose. There also is a requirement that the municipalities use age and developmentally appropriate language when working with their children during the soft and hard lockdowns. I think we've had pretty positive experiences with that in the past. But in some places, that wasn't always the case, but that is added language into the School Safety Act this year. And also, they're prohibiting any use of simulations during drills. So that's some new language that's added. So that's something new that the community will see, is that you will be notified prior to an official lockdown drill with the police department. Okay?
Thanks, Kelly. And hot off the press is my last topic before we get to condolences and celebrations. We received notice from the Village of Tinley Park that they are applying for an Illinois Safe Routes to School program to put sidewalk down the east side of Oak Park Avenue. You all have a map in front of you. It's highlighting where the sidewalk would go. This is
Great news.
outstanding.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Absolutely. Very cool.
Absolutely.
In order to complete the grant, they need a letter of support from the school district. It requires the support of the board. They need it fast because the deadline's approaching. So if you wouldn't mind giving me an indication it's okay for me to write
Yes.
that letter.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely.
And the other thing that they need is student tallies, so they can get some idea of how many of our Tinley Park students get to school by bus, get to school by car, and get to school by foot. So I'll be providing them with that information in conjunction with Fulton and Memorial and Central Administration, and obviously cooperation from Mr. Charleston's department with our bus service. Jeff, you're hearing this for the first time because this is just hours old, so very good news, exciting news for residents in the area of Tinley Park. We have no condolences this month. We do have a celebration. Megan Dory, the social worker at CMS celebrated the adoption of their son, Boston Matthew. The adoption was finalized in August, and they're just the most beautiful family. We wish them all the best. That's all I have for this superintendent's report.
I've got a question on the test to stay.
Sure.
You said that, Kelly, you said that you have to send something home to get signed before the test to stay.
Yes.
How is that accomplished? I mean, is it like a form that the kid
It's a
brings?
form that's sent home for the parents to sign.
And do they have 24, they gotta bring it back the next morning?
They're
Is that how it
supposed to
works?
return it to school the next day.
Is there any way we can speed that up, and can it be emailed? Can it be a PDF that they can sign and email back to speed things up? I mean,
I think that has been done in some buildings. I think it's just chasing some people down for
Okay.
the actual signature.
all right, so we are doing it, but some parents just still, I mean, we have, I mean, to me, we fought so hard to get them back, and we're trying to keep them in school. If we have to text them, or, we still haven't gotten it back, is that something that's kind of feasible?
Yeah, I mean, we're definitely doing that. I actually just had a meeting with the nurses prior to me coming here, and the volume of phone calls that they're receiving and making every day is significant, and it includes just kind of this follow-up to make sure that this is getting done. So I don't believe any student hasn't had the opportunity to participate in test to stay because of lack of signature. However, we still need to have that signature on
I
file.
understand, okay.
We've also had some families that asked if they could preemptively authorize siblings, and we welcome that. We're working on a way for families to preemptively authorize us to allow tests to stay on day one. So that should be forthcoming to help that as well.
Terrific.
Is there, like, at the curriculum nights, could those forms be available?
I'm hoping we can do it electronically and they can.
Right. I mean, that's the easiest way, but.
That's a good idea. We'll have a lot of folks here.
Comments? Okay, moving on. 4.1, citizens may address the board at this time. Once again, and just let everybody know, everyone has a 3-minute time limit, and we do ask that everyone be respectful in their comments. This is not a dialogue back and forth with the board. This is a time for the public to give their opinion to the board and for the board to listen. So again, if you would like to make a public comment, come to the podium, state your name, sign in on the sheet, and you have 3 minutes. Thank you.
Sorry, your pen isn't working. My name is Janet Gallagher. I'm going to start with something that was read at the Kansas House of Representatives in 1996 by Joe Wright. So I'm assuming I can read parts of his message at a school board meeting since it was at the House of Representatives. Heavenly Father, we come before you to ask your forgiveness and seek your direction and guidance. Your words say, woe to those who call evil good, but that's exactly what we've done. We have lost our spiritual equilibrium and inverted our values. We have endorsed perversion and called it an alternative lifestyle. We have rewarded laziness and called it welfare. We have killed our unborn and called it choice. We have neglected to discipline our children and call it building self-esteem. We have abused power and call it political savvy. We have polluted the air with profanity and pornography and called it freedom of expression. We have ridiculed the time-honored values of our forefathers and called it enlightenment. Search us, O God, and know our hearts today. Cleanse us from every sin and set us free. Guide and bless these men and women who have been elected to the school board by the citizens of District 146. Grant them your wisdom to rule, and may their decisions direct us to the center of your will. I ask it in the name of your Son, the living Savior, Jesus Christ. People, all of you who are woke need to be awakened. Go online and see Bill number 818 that Governor Pritzker signed into law on August 27th. It is pro-abortion, pro-LGBTQ, and sex education. It includes teaching on how to procure abortions and obtaining transgender hormones. He says the new sex education curriculum will deliver the bright future our kids deserve. We also teach critical race theory too. Look that up. The school district says parents can opt out of these curriculums. Why don't they give you detailed lesson plans and let you opt in if you want your child to be in it? How do parents know it won't be integrated into every class, every grade, or as in California, have rogue teacher pushing their own woke policies? Why does LGBTQ get a month of celebration and our veterans, many who gave their lives for our freedom, get 1 day? We, including myself, have been programmed by television, movies, music, and celebrities. The schools and your government have been indoctrinating all of us for years. We need to be wake.
30 seconds.
We need to. God bless America, because we aren't going to take it anymore. Sorry, I get back surgery. I can't.
Additional public comment?
Ooh, how did I follow that one up? My name's Ken Price, parent at Memorial. I don't know, this is Justin putting it out there, I'm not asking a question. Is law enforcement involved in the end of the day leaving of the schools? Because Oak Park Avenue is a mess, and trying to get across Oak Park to Memorial. So I don't know if Central has law enforcement, but maybe that's something that, I mean, the board could at least ask for just assistance in traffic. It's kind of a pain in the butt. So I mean, it might be something that, you know, you guys could look into. On top of that, I want to say that I have had to jump through a boatload of hoops this week trying to get my kids back into school because they have the sniffles. And I have been making phone calls and jumping back and forth. And the one thing that I've realized from that is I am so thankful that I had to do that and that every other parent has to do that. Your system that you guys have set up, it works, and I just want to say thank you. It was a pain in the butt, even though my kids just had sore throats and sniffles, but I'm glad I had to go through all that pain in the ass work, because I know every other parent is, and I know you guys get a lot of crap. So I want to come up here and say thank you. It works, your system works. Memorial's wonderful. I want to say that Miss Mary in their front office needs a raise. She is an amazing woman and holding our hands through everything. So I really just wanted to come up and say thank you. Thank you very much. And then also, if we could look into possible law enforcement assistance with traffic during the day. So thank you very much.
Good evening. My name's Shane Wilson. I have a son at Central. I just want to real quick address the issue that Dr. Stawick raised about communicating COVID at schools. And Mr. Lloyd made an interesting point. He said the point of informing the public and informing parents of school children in the school is to let people be on the lookout. And I think that might be partially true. I think the bigger issue is to inform parents about what's going on in the school, particularly with a very significant issue, which is a potentially fatal disease getting into the school community. To take away that communication and to only communicate to parents of school children who are in a direct classroom is to miss a lot of contact tracing that has to go on. That means you're not informing anyone who shares a bus with an infected student. It means you're not informing anyone who shares a lunchroom with an infected student, a place where masks are to be taken off. It means hallway contact is not to be considered. It means sporting activities are not to be considered. You're actually removing vital information. I suppose the argument could be made, well, it's on the dashboard. Go look at the dashboard. But that means you're abdicating that responsibility and you're putting it on parents. And I frankly don't think there's anything wrong with the communication method that you have in place now. And to take away that channel of information to parents is to turn silence into a comment. It's to suggest there's nothing wrong. It's to suggest there's a sick student in our school, but you don't need to be worried about it. And I guess if it was a cold, that might be true. This isn't a cold. So I would urge you to reconsider this idea that only certain parents should be informed and that this isn't a topic worthy of sharing with parents throughout the school. It's still a problem. It's still a pandemic. It's still global. It's still affecting a lot of people. And particularly for parents of students in our elementary schools, they're dealing with unvaccinated individuals, their children. I think you owe it to them to keep that information flowing and to not cut it off because you think it might be embarrassing or misconstrued. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Ron Cassis, and I'm a longtime resident of Tinley Park, right around Bert Fulton. I've worked for every one of these schools. When Dr. Pecuniar was head of the school district. I don't know how many of you have been in the service, and most of you are still young. I'm 83 years old. I went into the Navy, and I took an oath against foreign and domestic. I'm fighting domestic. And don't take, it's not against you, but you're part of the domestic, of teaching our kids the wrong things. And like standing up for the flag, say the Pledge of Allegiance. You say it here, why can't you say it in the classrooms? And, you know, you're not going to embarrass anybody. If they don't like it, they don't have to say it. Just teach them the right things. That's all I got to say. Thank you.
Additional public comment? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to 5.1, report from union representatives. Does the union have a report?
Hello, I'm Lori Kaiser. I am a union member, but I'm also just going to speak as a teacher. So I was trying to figure out where I speak. I just wanted to kind of just say, last spring I did speak on behalf with making sure we could get back into school. I know this summer many committees worked, and I just want to thank the board for taking the time to also meet with our union members who were able to meet so that we could build more conversation and more collaboratively in making sure we could be back to school. I know there was a big debate at wearing masks, but again, I know that being back in person has been very successful. I'm currently a second grade teacher, and I'm pretty amazed at how well the students have adjusted to wearing their masks. And I guess I didn't realize until as we went out to recess that some children even still wear their masks outside, even though they have a choice of taking a break. So the reality is that not only as we adults are probably nervous, but kids. So as we continue through this pandemic, I appreciate all of you to look into the considerations and continue to support all of us being safe at all times. So again, I also want to just thank our PTO at Fulton. I know our open houses were really cool. We had popcorn festivities and things and the kids. So we do look forward to keeping this momentum going and keeping us safe. And again, thank you for all that you do.
Watch me fall.
Workers' comp.
I'm Karen Lyons. I'm the co-vice president of our ESP union. I just want to say hello. We do have some new board members that have joined on our union. And then also we do have an agreed upon contract for this year. So thank you so much.
Okay, moving on. Action items. Can I have a motion for the consent agenda, please?
I move that we approve items 6.1, approval of minutes, 6.2, approval of closed session minutes, 6.3, approval of destruction of closed session tapes, 6.4, approval of financial items, and 6.5, approval of personnel items.
Second.
Any discussion? Secretary, call the roll.
Dunlap.
Yes.
Casper.
Yes.
Shalata.
Yes.
Lloyd, yes. Barry.
Yes.
Nenza.
Yes. 6.6, approval of budget for 2021-22.
I actually have an answer to Rick's question from earlier. Probably nobody in the room cares about it except for you and me. But
I care, Jeff.
I'm going to show you.
We all care.
All right, we talked about how local revenue is down 1.2 million,
Yeah.
almost 1.3. Where did that all come from? Normally, property taxes go up 800,000 or 900,000 in a year, but this year, since we have bonds rolling off, we collect property taxes that match the amount of bonds that we have to pay. So property taxes are only going to go up 200,000 this year.
Because we have 600,000 of 700,000 of bonds coming off.
Yes, so it's, on local revenue, property taxes are up 200,000, but we're abating $1 million. That brings us down to negative 800. We have 300,000 less in interest income, so that's 1.1 million. And we have 200,000 less in food service, 1.3 million-ish.
Makes sense. And the debt service is dollar for dollar.
It is,
That
yes, it
really
is.
has no effect on the bottom line.
Correct. It was bothering me, so I looked it up while we were talking.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
No other comments from me.
Okay, do I have a motion?
I move that the Board of Education adopt the budget as presented at the budget hearing for the 2021-2022 school year.
I'll
Second.
second.
Further discussion? Secretary, call the roll.
Dunlap.
Yes.
Casper.
Yes.
Shalata.
Yes.
Lloyd, yes. Barry.
Yes.
Nenza.
Yes. 6.7, approval of policies, second read.
Yes, there's been no changes in those policy recommendations since the first read last month. I will draw the board's attention to 5.330, which is the educational support personnel accumulation of sick day, or accumulation of vacation days. That's so that our non-union ESPs enjoy the same benefit as our union ESPs, and this is the language that's resulting from the ESP contract that you'll ratify later tonight.
Is there a motion?
I move that the Board of Education approve the revised policies as presented.
Second.
Further discussion? Secretary, call the roll.
Dunlap.
Yes.
Casper.
Yes.
Shalata.
Yes.
Lloyd, yes. Barry.
Yes.
Nenza.
Yes. 6.8, general PTAB resolution for 2020-2022 Tinley Park.
I'm sorry, one more thing on the budget. Everybody has to sign the budget document, so don't leave before you sign that. Okay, on the PTAB thing. We use the law firm of Franzik to help us when a big commercial property files an appeal of their property taxes, just to represent the district's interests, to make sure that property tax evaluations are fair. So we usually sign a 3-year agreement at a time for them to represent us in front of the Property Tax Appeal Board, PTAB. So that's what this resolution is for the next 3 taxing years.
Do I need to read the entire resolution? Okay. Can I have a motion to approve the resolution, please? There's no language there, so
I
just,
move to approve the motion as presented.
perfect. Is there a second?
Second.
Further discussion? Secretary, call the roll.
Dunlap.
Yes.
Casper.
Yes.
Shalata.
Yes.
Lloyd, yes. Barry.
Yes.
Nenza.
Yes. 6.9, approval of Food Service District 135 Intergovernmental Agreement Amendment.
Yes. So we have an intergovernmental agreement with Orland 135 for food service. They prepare the food in their kitchens. It's actually done in partnership with Quest, but our agreement is with Orland. This year, with all of the food being free for all students, there's also different requirements about what is allowed to be served and not, and there's packaging costs that are higher. And so Orland has approached us and asked for an amendment for this year only to cover their higher costs. So it's going to cost us more for breakfast, and we pay per meal that we serve, but it's offset by higher reimbursement rates from the federal government. I think it's completely fair, so I'm recommending that the board approve this.
Is there a motion?
I move that we approve the Orland 135 IGA amendment as presented.
Is there a second?
Second.
Further discussion? I did point out to Jeff this evening, the school lunch menu has been the exact same since the beginning of school year, and for all of September, it is the exact same. So I just asked if he could inquire with Quest to see if there would be any kind of variation being brought into that menu. The students do have 3 choices each day, but they are the same, pretty much the same 3 choices every day. So we're just going to get a little information on that. I know some parents had asked me about that as well.
And I think we had to set the menu for the whole month in advance, and with it being free for everybody, we weren't quite sure if we were going to have a huge influx of students eating who normally didn't, so we had to be prepared. But yes, we will definitely add some variety for the future.
We were also surprisingly limited number of foods that they could get their hands on in enough quantity. So I hope they have a better handle on what supply is going to be available in advance. If they have to make the whole monthly menu, and at the time they couldn't get their hands on what they wanted, they served
Sure.
things they didn't
Oh.
serve, I guess. So
Absolutely.
that's interesting.
Just to, right.
It's going to get, those 3 meals are going to be boring after a while.
Any further discussion? Secretary, call the roll.
Dunlap,
Yes.
Gasper,
Yes.
Shalata,
Yes.
Lloyd, yes. Barry,
Yes.
Nenza.
Yes. 6.10, approval of Tinley Park ESP Council AFT Local 604 contract.
Very excited about this one. The ESP union's team and the board's team met for a number of weeks and had really good discussions about how we can continue to deliver a high-quality product and what's the appropriate ways to compensate folks in that bargaining unit, as well as create conditions where they can be successful in the long term. I'm happy to recommend this contract, which is a 5-year contract with raises for ESP union members of 3.25% a year. And I'm very excited about it. I think it's a fair contract for all parties. And I regret that there isn't motion language in your content, but if you read the 6.10 approval of Tinley Park, if you read that as it is with a motion in front of it, that will suffice.
Is there a motion?
I move that the board approve the Tinley Park ESP Council AFT Local 604 contract as presented.
Is there a second?
Second.
Further discussion? Secretary, call the roll.
Dunlap,
Yes.
Gasper,
Yes.
Shalata,
Yes.
Lloyd, yes. Barry,
Yes.
Nenza.
Yes. 6.11, appointment of Central Middle School Assistant Principal.
I was very, very happy to recommend Dr. Kim Wesley for this position. Also very pleased the board had a chance to meet her last week at Committee of the Whole. She was very pleased to meet you. She comes to us with a wealth of experience, particularly in the area of curriculum, and she's an exciting addition to the team over at Central.
Is there a motion?
I move the Board of Education approve the appointment and contract for Dr. Kimberly Wesley as Assistant Principal of Central Middle School for the 2020-2021 school year.
Is there further discussion? Should that motion language be 21-22 school year?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, should be. Do you want me to reread that?
All right, Secretary, call the roll.
Dunlap,
Yes.
Gasper,
Yes.
Shalata,
Yes.
Lloyd, yes. Barry,
Yes.
Nenza.
Yes. 7.1, communications correspondence.
I have a thank you card from Wayne Clack. Thank you for the wonderful gift for my 15 years of service
Thank you again.
I also have a card. Thank you for thinking of our family during this difficult time. Thank you for the flowers and kind expressions of sympathy during this difficult time. Sincerely, Mary Shanuda.
And I have a thank you card from Dr. Staywick. Thank you for your generous gift. The past 10 years have turned into my life's work, and I couldn't be happier. It is my pleasure to serve District 146.
8.1, do I have a motion to go into closed session?
I move that we go into closed session for a personnel item.
Is there a second?
Second.
Secretary, call the roll.
Dunlap,
Yes.
Casper,
Yes.
Shalata,
Yes.
Lloyd, yes, Barry,
Yes.
Nenza.
Yes. There will be no action after closed session.